Matthew Ho, rethinkafghanistan.com, the official who resigned over the Afghan war. Matthew, we have audio for you now, I understand.
Yes, can you hear me, Tom?
Okay, just fine. Yeah, thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me on the show. I'm pleased to be here.
This must have been a very difficult decision for you to give up a paycheck, to give up possibly a career for an act of conscience. You want to share with our viewers and our listeners what went through your mind when you decided to do this?
Sure. It was. I appreciate you stating it that way, Tom, because it was a very difficult decision. I had been in the Marine Corps for 10 years, and I was, with the State Department as a political officer, and my intentions were to, continue in the civil service, go to graduate school, and then continue on and be a career civil servant, whether it was with state or DOD or an intelligence community. And this decision made me physically nauseous at times. Mm-hmm. I was a Marine, Tom, and you don't walk away from a fight. Yeah. And the feelings of that I was abandoning the people I was with there, my counterparts, both military and civilian, it still bothers me. It still bothers me. But at the end of the day, it was a crisis of conscience I had. I felt our young men were dying fighting people who were only fighting us because we were occupying them, and that they were dying and not making America any safer. And it wasn't worth their lives, and so I could no longer support our mission there.
My sense of it is, Matthew Ho, that part of the change, I noticed a change in the dialogue in America, and I noticed a change in the language coming out of the White House almost immediately after you resigned. I think that you had a big impact. I'm curious your sense of not necessarily just specific to your saying that. I'll pat you on the back. I'm not sure if you want to, but it seems to me like I'm hearing more and more coming out of the White House that that they may not be willing to make the same mistakes that McGeorge Bundy and Lyndon Johnson made back in the 60s in Vietnam, which certainly seemed like it was the road that they were hell-bent for leather to go down during the first at least 3 or 4 months of this administration's administration.
Correct. And I don't know. I mean, here's the thing about my letter. There's nothing novel or unique in it. These are thoughts and concerns, and as a result of conversations I've had with many of my military and civilian counterparts, as well as my Afghan counterparts, and more importantly, Afghan civilians that I worked with and dealt with, as well as the studying of the history and consultation with friends who've served in Afghanistan for the last several years. But like I said, nothing is novel and unique to what I said, and I think maybe that's why it has resounded so thoroughly within the administration and on Capitol Hill, because I think people are questioning this because it doesn't make any sense. Our presence there does not defeat Al-Qaeda. Our presence there does not stabilize Pakistan. If those are our two reasons for being there, then what are we doing? And I think there's a common sense or a logic test that this continues to fail. Yeah. And people recognize that. I
think the most recent report from the Pentagon was that there are perhaps 100 al-Qaeda fighters, in quotes, in Afghanistan and perhaps 200 in Pakistan. And we're throwing 100,000 or more troops and another 100,000 mercenaries, I'm assuming, at this. It does not make sense to anybody. Frankly.
Exactly. I think most people would agree that al-Qaeda evolved after 2001, and they became an organization that does not have ties or does not need ties to any political state or geographical boundaries. Yeah. And we're refusing to recognize that, and we're refusing to fight al-Qaeda the way we should be fighting al-Qaeda. Right. And al-Qaeda should be our priority because, God forbid, we have another loss of life like we did on 9/11, or with the state of our economy and the world economy, what that would do to world financial and economic markets. We can't afford to have something like that. So destroying, please don't anyone get me wrong, the destruction of al-Qaeda should be our priority, but we're not going to do that by occupying Afghanistan.
Well, and it's not like there's not a precedent, and I'm not talking about the precedent of empires dying in Afghanistan. It's not like there's not a precedent for how to deal with terrorism. The Baader-Meinhof gang, you may not be old enough to remember these things. I am. The Baader-Meinhof gang in Germany, when Aldo Moro, as I recall his name was, the Prime Minister of Italy, was kidnapped by the Red Brigades in Italy and died in the trunk of a car, as I recall. the IRA in England. Germany didn't start bombing the cities where the Baader-Meinhof gang was hanging out. Italy didn't start bombing the nearby countries where the Red Brigades were operating out of, and some would even suggest some of the former Soviet states were havens for them. England didn't start dropping bombs on Northern Ireland. They did put a military presence in there. It backfired badly on them, frankly, in my opinion. But I mean, they nearly blew up Maggie Thatcher. They blew up a bomb right next door to number 10 Downing Street. And the British did not demagogue this. They did not elevate the Catholics in Northern Ireland to the status of Lex Luthors, the way that George Bush did with Osama bin Laden. We know how to fight terrorism. You do it with the way that Barack Obama is doing right now with Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. He's bringing him to New York. He's going to set him down in a federal courtroom, and the guy is going to face a trial by a jury that could end in a death sentence. It's real simple.
I think if you look at this as a fight between liberal, progressive, modern ideas versus an extreme jihadist, apocalyptic vision, we'll win in the end based on our ideas and the validity of ideas and the strength of our ideas. We didn't defeat the Soviet Union by propping up Marcos and other corrupt dictators all around the world. We defeated the Soviet Union and won the Cold War because our system was better. Our values
Their system collapsed of its own weight.
Exactly, because they were a system that didn't offer anything to their people. It repressed thought, it repressed development of people, was a terrible system. And in the same way that what Al-Qaeda offers is a terrible system. And we will defeat them by the strength of our ideas, not by garrisoning Muslim countries, which only actually leads credence to their argument of defending their culture. So really, our strategy of occupation really just serves to lead credence to their concerns or their views.
We're talking with Matthew Ho, the first U.S. State Department official to resign in protest over our policies in Afghanistan and make a statement and one for which we all salute you, sir. RethinkAfghanistan.com, by the way. Robert Greenwald's great movie. Matthew, we have just a minute left here.
Sure.
I'm wondering what, in your opinion, would be the very best thing that our viewers and listeners could be doing right now to reach out to the administration or the members of Congress or the media or whatever to try to prevent us from making the mistakes of Vietnam in Afghanistan?
That's exactly what they need to do, Tom. We have a window here where we can affect change on this, where I don't believe we're not going to get troops out of there tomorrow, but if we can make our commitment there only be 1 more year or a year and a half as opposed to 3 or 4 or 5, how many lives we're going to save? And I would encourage your listeners to recognize that our best young men, just wonderful young men, are dying there for no purpose, for a purpose that does not make us safer, and that you need to act on it. Don't be the person 5, 10, 15 years from now who says, you know what, I never supported Afghanistan or I was against it, and not do anything. That does nothing. That does nothing for those young men over there who deserve. So
call the White House, call your member of Congress, write a letter to the editor of the newspaper.
Share Robert Greenwald's film. It's a really smart, thought-provoking film.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. RethinkAfghanistan.com. Go watch that film and then share that with everybody you can, and there's tools to do that on the website. Matthew Ho, thank you so much for what you've done, Matthew.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate your time.
And thank you for coming on the program. 45 minutes past the hour.